The Spotlight Initiative is a global, multi-year partnership between the European Union and the United Nations to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls by 2030. The initiative is particularly focused on domestic and family violence, sexual and gender-based violence, and harmful practices. To bridge the critical gaps in the legislative and policy framework, several pieces of legislation are being reviewed and amended to ensure greater level of justice and protection for women and girls.
Our government came in during a time period when the Spotlight Initiative had already commenced. They've identified several issues that they've been working with the government. Namely, the UNDP has donated not only towards the development of software, but the acquisition of hardware that has enabled the criminal division to continue hearing matters during the pandemic. So it's been very helpful. The court system, the Supreme Court Criminal Division, was able to acquire video conferencing equipment, and that enabled them to continue so that the backlog was not increased significantly. They've also sponsored the development of a case management software to enable that court system to manage different processes and applications for court matters in that court. And in regards to the family court, to assist them to manage the maintenance of children. It takes a very long time for them to verify payment, and so mothers have to wait very long for the payment to be verified and processed. With the software that is being developed, that will cut down that processing time, and mothers will be able to get maintenance for their children soon after it's paid into the government's bank account. So these have been projects that we have inherited through the Spotlight Initiative.
When we look at the accomplishments that the National Women's Commission has had under the Spotlight Initiative, I think it has been the inclusion of multiple activities that were part of the National Gender-Based Violence Action Plan, which is under the responsibility of the National Women's Commission. One of the main aspects of the work of the National Women's Commission in regards to Spotlight Initiative, which was the evaluation of the previous National Gender Policy and of the National Gender-Based Violence Action Plan. And so it was really an opportunity to assess what has been the impact of that plan, what was accomplished, what were the gaps, and what are the challenges people continue to face, not only in terms of those persons accessing services, but also those duty bearers that will continue to work in the sector. And so the evaluation allowed us to really be able to meet with people within these various sectors and assess what we need to do and what we need to include in the new Gender-Based Violence Action Plan, and of course the National Gender Policy. Once the development of the policy and the action plan was completed, we also participated and ensured that the consultation process was as consultative as possible and inclusive as possible. So we really had a lot of sessions, and we recognize that there may be need for more, but we really tried to include sectors that maybe otherwise would not have been included in the past.
Another key goal of the Spotlight Initiative is to enhance the delivery of critical services to women and girls.
Care upgrade is a very important area for the Ministry of Human Development when it comes to gathering data on domestic violence. We do have this system Care where we manage our cases and it collects data, but there's not specific or more detailed data in relation to the domestic violence or gender-based violence cases that come into the ministry, to the Women's Department. So what this initiative is doing is getting support from Spotlight Initiative through the UNDP to upgrade the Care platform that we have that will be able to capture the domestic violence information within that system. It should also be able to compare with other domestic violence or violence databases out there, because we have different organizations, different bodies collecting information, but I don't know that there's sufficient synergy. And so while this is a first step for us in the ministry, I can see how it could lead to, in the near future, getting everything synergized so that we have one complementary set of data in relation to gender-based violence and domestic violence as well. When it comes to access to the FamCare, there are different levels of access. For instance, our ministry, our department, we're managing the platform. We have full access to all areas of the platform. But there are other organizations that would be able to have limited access depending on the area and the scope of work. For instance, we may be able to give access to the police department, maybe to the Ministry of Health, maybe to Belize Crime Observatory, for example. And that is why I mentioned the importance of synergizing all the data, maybe even Statistical Institute of Belize. But this is a start, and I think it's a positive step forward that is much needed. The other initiative being supported by the Spotlight Initiative is the Standard Operating Procedures for Safe Houses in Belize. Currently, the project covers the 3 safe houses that we have: Mary Open Doors, Haven House, and House of Dorcas. And these are homes that survivors of violence, domestic violence in particular, are able to go to in the case of an emergency or an event that they experience, and they can stay for a determined period of time and get the support that's needed there. And what it's doing is setting up standard operating procedures for COVID-19, for in the event of emergencies such as a fire, such as hurricanes, eventually developing a hurricane plan, but essentially mapping out what will be the operating procedures, so you know what to do, 1, 2, 3, and you also have the equipment and material necessary to respond. And then also eventually, as we're going into the next hurricane season, to have a preparedness plan. And in addition to that, once the standard operating procedures have been finalized, we will be having or seeing training of the staff members of these homes, but also of the board and the management, and also staff of the ministry who interact regularly with them.
The Spotlight Initiative is working closely with implementing agencies to better respond to family violence, while also addressing critical social norms and other root causes of family violence.
The focus of this project is to look at the way couples interact with each other and to support the idea of eliminating all forms of violence in relationship and to advance the issue of gender equity and equality amongst couples. We feel that both women and men must be socialized in such a way that they have the opportunity to talk with each other with respect, to learn about each other, to learn about how each other communicate, what are the issues, and if there's issues of conflict, how to mitigate, and how to really respect each other from the point of view that violence have no place within a relationship of equal. This is our, I would say, 3rd and 4th cohort of this gender and healthy relationship sessions in Corozal. And I have to say that it has been a really positive learning experience. We are very thankful to have this opportunity to interact with couples of different ages. We have people who have been together for 30 years, we have people who have been together maybe for 20 years, we have people in common law relationship, we have people who are just dating now, and then also the older persons could also act to give recommendations, suggestions, support, because I think a lot of times people in relationship need support. It's not all about let it go until it reaches to the stage of violence and then ending. There is many steps in between that you can take to support positive relationship. We were able, through the different aspects of the Spotlight Initiative, we were able to reach out to the different communities, the different villages. We also had people who came into Dangrega that lives in the surrounding villages to benefit from the program. We targeted couples that are together. However, where we couldn't get people to come as couples, we still encourage individuals to come, because we felt that the information that we were sharing would be beneficial even if you're in relationship or in between relationship. Also, one of the things that we did is that we had a cohort of persons who are in same-sex relationship in Dangriga, and I felt that that was really beneficial to those persons who came to the program, because it was a safe space for them, especially those in same-sex relationship that face discrimination and stigmatization sometimes by the wider community. The Spotlight Initiative and the role that we as Power played in it, I think that it really focused a lot on developing self, the individual, for us to know our rights, for us to know the laws, for us to know what is abuse, because sometimes, as simple as it may sound, some people are not so aware of maybe emotional and psychological abuse, financial abuse. They may be very much aware of maybe physical abuse, but some of the other signs and symptoms and red flags are not so present in their life. So I feel that if we're able to, as individuals, make change, and I think that we'll be able to then make change in our relationship, make change in our family, make change in our community.
We all know that gender-based violence is recognized as one of the most serious forms of human rights violation and as a major public health challenge. To help accelerate progress in preventing and ending violence, we all need to work together. This is exactly why ESCLAN and the National Women's Commission started the project Engaging Men and Boys, with support from UNDP Belize and the Spotlight Initiative. Over the past year, we accomplished various activities, which include a United Nations General Assembly side event to bring awareness to the project. A workplace curriculum and youth toolkit were then created to conduct trainings around the country for workplaces and youth organizations. And finally, a public awareness campaign was created to promote gender equality and positive masculinity messages. Men, women, boys and girls have the opportunity to reflect on their attitudes and behaviors, where they share their personal stories, both happy and sad, that have touched us deeply. We have learned so much in these trainings and have received so many positive evaluations and responses. It has been such a meaningful experience to see the change taking place right in front of our eyes. Both men and women have learned so much about gender equality, healthy masculinity, managing anger, and what it means to be accountable in these sessions. Training with over 10 workplaces and youth organizations has been completed, with over 300 men and boys participating in the training sessions. The Engaging Men and Boys project has only skimmed the surface of this very important work, and much more training is needed in Belize. The training needs now need to take place in schools, private sector, religious organizations, and in rural communities, complemented by a comprehensive public awareness campaign.
In Belize, Spotlight Initiative has been very active through civil society organizations and government implementing partners to strengthen policy and legislations that will guarantee increased protection of women and girls, to enhance national and subnational institutions, to plan, fund, and deliver evidence-based programs, address gender inequitable social norms and behavior change at both individual and community level, provide quality essential services for women and girls who experience violence, and enhance the collection of quality, disaggregated, internationally comparable data on violence and harmful practices for analysis and decision policy making.